Mr. Lazzarini is going to give a few remarks, and then I'll open the floor for a few questions. When I do so, please introduce yourselves and the media you work for. Very, very grateful that you're all here. It's a very important story. We're working very, very closely with partners in the media world to make sure that we amplify the voices of Palestinian civilians and Palestine refugees who are in Gaza. It's extremely important that we continue to do so. Thank you. Mr. Commissioner, over to you.
Thank you, Tamara, and good evening all, and many thanks for being here tonight. I would have preferred to meet you on much better circumstances, but I have called for this press conference to raise the alarm that as of today, my UNRWA colleagues in Gaza are no longer able to provide humanitarian assistance. As I speak with you, Gaza is running out of water and electricity. In fact, Gaza is being strangled, and it seems that the world right now has lost its humanity. If we look at the issue of water, we all know water is life, and Gaza is running out of water, and Gaza is running out of life. Soon, I believe, with this, there will be no food or medicine either. There is not one drop of water, not one grain of wheat, not a liter of fuel that has been allowed in the Gaza Strip for the last 8 days. The number of people seeking shelter in our school and other UNRWA facilities in the south is absolutely overwhelming, and we do not have any more the capacity to deal with them. My team, who relocated to Rafah to sustain operation following the Israeli ultimatum, is working in the same building as thousands of desperate displaced people, rationing also their food and their water. In fact, an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding under our eyes. And already, and we should always remember that before the war, Gaza was already under blockade for 16 years, and basically more than 60% of the population was already relying on international food assistance. It was already before the war a kind of humanitarian welfare society. Every hour, we receive more and more desperate calls for help from people across the Strip. We, as UNRWA, have lost already 14 staff members. They were teacher, engineer, guard, psychologist, and most of our 13,000 staff in the Gaza Strip are now displaced or out of their homes. My colleague Kamal lost his cousin and her entire family. My colleague Hélène and her children were pulled out of the rubble. I was so relieved to learn that they were still alive. My colleague Ines fears that Gaza will no longer exist. Every story coming out of Gaza is about survival, despair, and loss. Thousands of people have been killed, including children and women. Gaza is now even running of body bags. Entire families are being ripped apart. At least 1 million people were forced to flee their homes in 1 week alone. A river of people continue to flow south. And I fear that the visuals are reminiscent of those from 1948. No place is safe in Gaza. At least 400,000 displaced are now in UNRWA schools and buildings, and most are not equipped as emergency shelter. Sanitary conditions are just appalling, and we have reports in our log base, for example, where hundreds of people are just sharing one toilet. Old people, children, pregnant women, people with disability are just being deprived from their basic human dignity, and this is a total disgrace. Unless we bring now supplies into Gaza, we will not, as UNRWA and as aid worker, be able to continue our humanitarian operation. Our operation, the one of UNRWA, is the largest United Nations footprint in the Gaza Strip, and we are on the verge of collapse. And this is absolutely unprecedented. We keep reminding, and IHL has now to be in the center of our concern. Wars, all wars, even this war, has law. International humanitarian law is the law of any armed conflict. It explicitly sets the minimum standard that must prevail at any time. The protection of the wounded and civilian, including humanitarian workers, are non-negotiable under humanitarian law. Last week's attack on Israel was horrendous. Devastating images and testimonies continue to come out. The attack and the taking of hostage are a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law. But the answer to killing civilians cannot be to kill more civilians. Imposing a siege and bombarding civilian infrastructure in a densely populated area will not bring peace and security in the region. And the siege in Gaza, the way it is imposed, is nothing else than collective punishment. So before it is too late, the siege must be lifted and aid agency must be able to safely bring in essential supply such as fuel, water, food and medicine. And we need this now. Over the last few days, we have advocated for fuel to come in because we need fuel for the water station and the desalination plant in the south of Gaza. Unfortunately, we still have no fuel. All parties must facilitate a humanitarian corridor so we can reach all those in need of support. And UNRWA and aid agency must be able to do their work and save lives, and we must do so safely without risking our lives. Finally, we are also calling for a suspension of hostilities for humanitarian reasons, and this needs to take place without any delay if we want to spare loss of more lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mohammed, I'm going to go to you first.
Mohammed Jamroon with Al Jazeera English. Commissioner, there's been some reports in the last couple of hours that perhaps water has been restored to southern Gaza. Can you tell us if you've learned if that's the case or what exactly is going on?
I heard the same report, but we haven't been able yet to confirm. My understanding is that if there is restoration of the water, it would primarily impact Khan Yunis or half of Khan Yunis. So it would not cover the south of Khan Yunis or the people being in Rafah. But again, this is a report that we need to confirm, and for the time being, our colleagues on the ground are not able to confirm this information.
John?
John Reed from the FT. When you say you can no longer continue your operations, what does that mean exactly? You can't dispense aid, you can't...
Concretely, it means we cannot dispense aid anymore. Just to visualize, we have stocks in Rafah, a log base. Our team now is located in Rafah, but we have thousands of people in the log base, and basically they need also, they have direct access of what's in our warehouses, and anyway, the team there does not have fuel anymore to move around, and again, without fuel, there is no water. Our colleagues are reporting to us that they are living right now on a daily basis with half a liter, 1 liter of water, but they have to ration the water, the food, and everything. So basically today, we are not in a situation anymore to provide assistance, for example, to the 400,000 displaced people who have taken shelter in UNRWA schools and premises in the middle Gaza and south of Gaza.
John Davison with Reuters. Just yesterday, you said there were about 1 million people in total displaced by the flood. Is there an update today? Is it much bigger than that?
It's extraordinarily difficult right now to have a proper account. we indeed estimate that since the beginning of the war, there have been more than 1 million people who have been displaced. We also estimate that we have 400,000 people now in our shelter, only in Khan Yunis and in Rafah. I have no indication now on how many people are still sheltered in the school in Gaza or north of Gaza. But overall, more than 1 million. How many since yesterday? Very difficult to monitor.
Serene?
Selina Khaldi, CNN. Do you know how many people evacuated south in the 6-hour window yesterday?
No, I don't know about the 6-hour window of yesterday. We estimate that about 600,000 people have gone towards the south so far over the last 2-3 days. But again, these are very rough estimates because we do not have necessarily the monitoring mechanism in place to find out how many within the days have been displaced. But we had images of large-scale a group of people leading towards the south.
Yeah,
Jeff York from the Globe and Mail, Canada. Do you have any information about the amount of aid on the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing? We know the WHO sent aid there. Do you have any estimate of how much aid from different UN agencies or from other sources?
I don't know how much aid is there. What I know is I'm getting more and more reports that non-food items start to arrive in El Jarish, that non-food items and aid start to be stockpiled on the Egyptian side of the border. But as you know, for the time being, there is absolutely no aid entering into the Gaza Strip. This, for the time being, is not possible as long as there is no proper deconflicting mechanism and as long as the security conditions are not in place to allow these convoys to come in.
Just to follow up on that, if they opened the Rafah crossing for some Palestinians or foreigners to leave to Egypt, would that allow any of the aid to flow north, or that would still be dependent on security?
I'm not aware of any reciprocity per se for the time being, and I was in Cairo 2 days ago to discuss about the inflow of aid coming from the Egyptian part, and for the only thing which for the time being seems to prevent the entry of aid is the absence of a green light by Israel right now into the Gaza Strip, and this is also very much related to the siege being imposed on the Strip.
Colleagues? Yeah.
Yeah, just a question about Israeli reports of Hamas trying to block people from evacuating because they want everyone to stay put. Do you get any sense of that? What's happening there? Is that true?
I have the same kind of information. I hear also bits and pieces, but I do not have a confirmation about a proper decision of this nature. But I hear it. Same information.
Yes.
Hey, Jeremy Dime with CNN. There are more than 15,000 Gazans who had work permits to work in Israel.
Yeah.
Are you tracking how many of those got stuck in Israel or are currently in the West Bank? And what is the plan for housing those Gazans going forward?
I have the director of the West Bank here who might help me to answer this question, but this is definitely a group of people we will be looking at, and especially if among this group of Gazan we have Palestinian refugees. So if they are Palestinian refugees, they can come to our center, and they will also be taken care of by UNRWA.
Adam, can I give you the floor?
Shall I? Yeah,
Please.
sorry. Yeah, just very quickly. So we don't know the full number of people who have come into the West Bank, but these were Gazans who were working. You know, there are several thousand that are working in Israel on any given day, and they were sort of caught between, two different locations. They couldn't go back to Gaza, obviously. So the numbers are, well, we don't exactly know, but they're at least over 5,000. I'm planning on meeting with the Minister of Labor in the next couple of days because there's an effort by the Palestinian Authority to move them, to scatter them a bit around the West Bank so that they don't burden a particular town or location. So 200 here and 200 there, that's the technique, the methodology. There are something like 1,500 that are still around Ramallah that haven't been accommodated. We don't have good information on whether or not they're refugees or not, but we'll try to see if we can get that information, and then we would provide services. But remember now that in the West Bank, there's no movement town to town. So the actual services that we can provide in the West Bank is extremely limited because there's a more or less lockdown of every village and every town in the West Bank.
Thank you. I think the Commissioner would like to give closing remarks.
Well, I don't know if it is closing a remark, but maybe one issue I haven't raised, and I keep telling to member states, you are all very familiar about the fact that this agency, UNRWA, has gone through severe financial crisis over the last 10 years. We, since 4 years, we are managing a negative cash flow. Now, I keep telling member states, we have been weakened so much through austerity that today we are not up to the challenges of the crisis unless there is a significant input of resources for the agency. At the time I'm talking to you, if I look at the backbone of the agency, our 30,000 staff delivering all the services, I still do not know at this hour if I will be able to cover the salaries in November. And at the same time, we are confronted to one of the most unprecedented crises in scope here in the region. Everybody is looking at an agency like UNRWA, which has been the lifeline for millions of refugees in Gaza. And so my call to the member states here is to say, if you want to have a predictable partner properly delivering humanitarian assistance, you have also to scale up your support to the agency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.